David, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I know you're a fellow North Carolinian originally, but where in the world are you located now?
We're in San Francisco. It's
What?
uh it's pretty smoky at the moment, but normally it's a good time of year to be here.
Yeah, I was actually just up there last weekend. Had planned on spending some time in Santa Cruz with some friends, and Santa Cruz is
Yeah,
obviously ground zero for all the fires. And we did the whole drive home from San Francisco to LA. It was just super smoky, but usually this is my favorite time of year in the Bay
right.
Area. It feels a little more like summer, September, October. Get to go surfing down in Gray Whale and Lindemar, all those spots. San Fran. How long you been there?
Been here for about 5 years on and off. Uh, this company took me out, Curtsy took me out to Mississippi for a couple months, and then we spent a year in Mountain View doing our time there, and then moved back to the city in summer of 2017. So I initially came out here 2015 summer.
All right, so I want to hear the full origin story. We're going to talk about Curtsy in a minute, but give me the on ramp. What was the post undergrad sort of progression that led you through Mississippi? Curious to hear what that was all about to eventually San
Yeah.
Fran.
Yeah. Well, my should I talk about like what Curtsy is first?
Yeah, you can go real brief, and then we'll get way deeper later.
Okay, yeah. So Curtsy's an app that lets women buy and sell clothes from their phones. So it's like if you've heard of Poshmark, it's a simpler version of that targeted towards Gen Z. Um, and I can kind of get into like, yeah, how we got there. But we started with a different business, and my co-founder on the business, two of my co-founders I actually went to high school with in Charlotte. My friend William was a grade above me. He and I were the two like tech kids at our high school. So we put on the morning announcements every morning. It was a big high school, like 3,000 kids. We had a live TV broadcast at 8 a.m. every morning. So he and I would, bond over like AV stuff and Apple products and entrepreneurship. And his sister was in my grade. Her name is Clara Agnes and William. They both went
Is
to
this
Ole
Myers?
Miss.
Is this Myers Park, by the way?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. You are a North Carolinian.
Yeah. Keep going. Okay.
Yeah, Myers Park is one of the biggest schools in North Carolina. Easy to get away with stuff,
Mhm.
but pretty good education too, I guess. Not that I was particularly interested in that part of it, but so anyway, William and his sister went to the University of Mississippi. I went up to Boston for school. Their senior year, Clara Agnes' senior year, William had just graduated. They and their friends linked up together to make an app that let sorority women rent dresses from each other on campus. So the idea was, and this world was foreign to me, but at the big SEC schools, big football schools in the South, like Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, Ole Miss, um, women in sororities tend to get really dressed up for all the football games, even like baseball games, all the social events in the fraternity sorority life. So this insight was like, wow, we need like 20 unique dresses a semester. Let's build a platform where they can more easily swap them on campus. And my background is in design and engineering, whatever engineering, more like development. I got started making websites when I was really young. I would help out like my neighbor who was starting a restaurant. I like figured out how to make websites and for him, and continued to make websites for small businesses in Charlotte all through high school. Got into the morning announcements at Myers Park. Did the newspaper, which kind of helped me hone my like graphic design skills, and then just continued to get more into engineering, and then ended up dropping out of Northeastern after a year to work at HubSpot full time, along with my friend. When I started as an engineer, but after a couple months, I got moved to a new team that was building HubSpot CRM, it wasn't even a CRM yet. It was actually just this email tool that let you see who opened your emails. And then over the course of my year there, went on to be the lead designer on their new CRM project. We got that shipped, that launched, and then I left to go back to school briefly before leaving again permanently, finally. So around the time, like there was like a year that passed before after I dropped out of school and before William and Clara Agnes started this app at Ole Miss, University of Mississippi. But William and I had stayed in touch all through college. His sister had posted this article to her Facebook about congrats William on this thing. And I remember reading about the app that they were working on, and I just commented on Facebook and said, hey, this looks really interesting. Like, let's catch up soon. And William called me over Thanksgiving 2015. And he wasn't at all like fishing for, trying to recruit me whatsoever. He was just saying, we really need a designer. I thought it was interesting. I mean, I really didn't. When I was in college, when I was in Boston, I was on this group called Rough Draft Ventures, which was similar to the Dorm Room Fund, but funded by General Catalyst. Mm-hmm. So part of that was we would see like startups come through, student-backed startups come through every Monday and pitch for investment. So I kind of had like a pretty high like bar or like kind of bullshit filter for these, student started things. So when William was telling me about it, I was like, this is interesting, whatever. But I actually agreed to do the first version of the app just as a freelance project for him. I was kind of in between projects. Truthfully, I was kind of only a few months into living in San Francisco and got randomly addicted to like delivering food on DoorDash. Mm. My friend kind of talked me into coming to the like orientation with him, and I just got like super into it. I actually became like the world's #1 DoorDasher in October of 2015. I'm not even joking. That's actually something that happened. And
what do you get? So, do you get like a special award? Does DoorDash give you any special perks for being like numero uno?
Well, they called me. This guy named Michael called me, and he told me that like they kind of wanted to know like how I had done it, because I had gone from like 0 deliveries in September to like being #1 in October. So, and yeah, he said he was going to send me a gift card, but they never followed up. Which that's pretty lame. But I did write an article about it on Medium, and then Vox paid me to put it on this blog of theirs. So that was pretty cool. It's actually still on the internet. It's kind of unfortunate, but yeah.
Don't worry,
so,
we'll put it in the show notes. Don't worry.
Great, awesome. No, it was kind of a random little side thing, and I was just that the year after I left school, I really didn't know what I wanted to do longer term. I had these skills of design and copywriting and web development, app development, but I was just kind of all over the place. I didn't really have a direction or like anything pulling me that strongly. So DoorDash was just one thing in a string of like these like random projects. I spent a month in Japan. I was really just trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And then right around that time, I started getting involved in the project that William was working on at Ole Miss. But funny enough, if you fast forward, like I did the first version of the app. It took off at the University of Mississippi to such an extent that I actually, gave up my apartment in San Francisco, moved to Oxford, Mississippi to help them work on it there. And then we applied to Y Combinator with the idea, and then we got in, which all brought us back out to Mountain View. Mm-hmm. And the last funny thing about the food delivery, in our YC interview, Sam Altman was one of the partners, and he was interviewing us, and he said, what do you guys know about two-sided marketplaces? And I was like, well, funny enough, Sam, I actually delivered. I was the #1 DoorDash delivery driver in October 2015, and I actually delivered to you once. and he was like, no kidding. And I was like, yeah, like the loft, like over there in that neighborhood, you ordered this like Indian food. And he was like, what? That's crazy. So it was this like funny moment.
Sam, a good tipper or a bad tipper? That, but more importantly, is he a cheap bastard or was he generous? You don't have to disclose.
When DoorDash first launched in San Francisco, the economics for the drivers were unbelievable. They were doing $12 flat flat rate per delivery made plus a guaranteed 20% tip.
Hmm.
So
Wow.
it didn't matter how stingy the customers were. I was
Wow.
making like 36 to
Wow.
45 an hour.
Wow. Awesome. Okay.
Yeah. Hence me getting like really into it for a second.
Yeah. Sam's like, we got to approve this application. They may have some dirt on me.
Well, it
We
was,
got to show. And the interviews are pretty short, aren't they?
yeah. And when I talk to companies that are doing interviews, like I kind of bring up that story as a way to like, as an example of like, you have to, it really is monotonous for these interviewers. They're doing
Mm.
20 to 50 of these in a day. And so it's hard to like try to be funny, but if there's any way to make it lighter or to
Yeah.
loosen up a bit, that actually could help you be remembered at the end of the day.
And it's a pretty quick turnaround on acceptance, right? Don't they tell you pretty quickly?
Yeah, we ours was like midday, and we were kind of like really nervous, and really just kind of anxious about it. We were like walking along the shoreline over by Google, and then Justin Kahn called us and told us, he was like, "You guys got in," and we were like, "Ah." He was like, "Yeah,
Mm.
it's cool. Okay, bye
Mm.
bye."
Mm. And then, so spend a few minutes. I'd love to hear about what that whole process was like, for the listeners. I'm sure would love a little behind the scenes insight into Y Combinator. How long did it last? What'd you guys takeaways for the whole time there?
Yeah. So we actually didn't necessarily get as much value out of YC as we could have. And part of the reason for that is the business that we were in was highly seasonal, right? Everybody after this semester and all the spring formals and all the events, they go on spring break and then they go home for the summer. So if you have a local rental marketplace for college kids, like operating in one zip code, like it's gonna be dead in the summer. So YC is best when you can um, use the like pressure cooker environment to grow your company really quickly. But we had to decide between, do we like try to change our business in order to show growth, or do we sit here and prep for the fall? I think if we did it again, we would have just kicked it. We would have deferred. I mean, obviously, we didn't know that it was going to be like that,
Mm.
but I think we would have done it later.
Mm.
Um, but it didn't matter. I mean, if it was for the purposes of helping us raise money, we didn't pitch at demo day because we didn't have any growth to show. But we had an amazing fall semester, and then we raised a round at the end of that year, so 2016.
Mm.
And we actually, because we deferred demo day, we after we pivoted the business, which we can get into, we ended up showing up to demo day like 3 years later,
Mm.
last summer, and pitched with that batch. So that was, I think literally that's the record for the longest demo day deferment in YC's history.
And so what was tell me a little bit about the pre-pivot. You guys went into fall time. Did you go back to Ole Miss? Were you expanding to other campuses? What was sort of the
So
progression?
yeah, a lot of people, rental's tough, and a lot of people don't necessarily realize this, but um, Rent the Runway is at least before COVID was doing well, mostly due to their unlimited subscription business, which is really different. When you're paying a subscription, your mindset shifts to like, how can I get the most value out of the like, money that I'm paying every month? So you're like, okay, well, I have this event coming up. I have these work outfits. I can just try to get as much value out as possible. When it's a special occasion rental business, which is essentially what Curtsy was too, it was just peer to peer. It really only works for dresses. It's very event based. So if I gave somebody, and we did this all the time, we gave somebody a $25, $50 coupon, and we said go rent something, they wouldn't even, most of the time, wouldn't even be able to use it, and they did it. It's very logistically complicated. Because it's event based, there's a huge element of timing that has to work out. You got to get it ahead of time to make sure it fits, wear it, bring it back, make sure it's clean in between rentals. So that's a nightmare, even when the company's handling the cleaning and the shipping. If you're relying on college kids to do that, it's even harder.
Right. Right.
We built a ton of tooling around just like eliminating some of the common, breaking points or friction points in a rental. And special occasions, like by definition, people don't mind splurging. Like if you have 2 sorority formals every year, most people's parents are happy to help them buy a new dress. So it was just tough. We had a annual, even with our best customers, maybe they were using it 5 times a semester. With our margin and the economics, it just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been a great lifestyle business. We launched it 10 schools the fall after YC, and then we launched it at 30 schools the next semester. It would have been a great lifestyle business in the Southeast. The problem is that every other school, like Pennsylvania or even like UCLA, that doesn't have that big SEC football Greek culture, it never was as big. But we tried everything to really make it work. We opened a physical retail store in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, that we had open for 6 months. And it was like, by the time we closed it, it was over like half of our business was coming from Alabama. And most of that was coming from the Curtsy store. It was like a managed rental store where we would like hold the inventory and do all the logistics, and people could come try it on there. We tried a subscription business at Georgia. We tried to launch shipping to do rentals across campuses. And then summer of 2018, we'd had enough, and we decided to pivot into our number one most requested feature, which was the ability to like sell stuff too.
I was smiling because I was like wondering what the percent destruction rate on these dresses were. Because if you've ever been to a SEC tailgate or any of these, and I imagine some of these get vodka cranberries or Bud Light spilled all over them. I was like, you should be making money on the insurance, or just the 30% that come back totally trash. People end up buying them. Okay, so you decide to pivot. What was the insight that you mentioned?
It's funny
and
though,
how did you
about that point? It's funny that there are things that investors tend to fixate on that like we really don't think about as much. In the rental business, that was everybody's first question, is like, what happens when the dress is destroyed, or like how do you maintain that quality? And then in the rental business, it's like, how do you ensure that it's more of like a fraud or like a satisfaction question, or the buy sell business. Really interesting thing about starting this company is like the vast majority of people are good actors. They are very they do see it as like, on the rental side, they're borrowing somebody's thing and there's a personal connection. So the times when a dress would be returned and it was like utter trash were like so rare, shockingly rare, way more rare than you'd expect. And to a large extent, that's true with the buy sell business too. Most of the time that an item has to be sent back, it's due to a total accident. Like, didn't realize that it was actually a small. They listed it as an extra small. That's like the most common scenario for why items have to be returned.
All right, so you decided sorority girls weren't the best business model. Then you decided to move to a little bit different focus. This was summer 2018?
Yeah.
So what was the progression there?
Yeah, we knew that this rental business was never going to be as big as our kind of ambitions for it. It had a lot of like slow growth dynamics, very, very similar to Uber and Lyft. You really have to get density in every town. It's very like manual process. So we wanted to pivot into shipping. We knew that people wanted to try buying and selling on our platform. Most of our customers were in college, right? 18 to 22. Interestingly, we're not using Poshmark, which was surprising to us. They're definitely like the industry leader here in terms of letting people sell clothes from their phones. But the average customer on there, it tends to be a lot older, like the moms of our customers. So our customers, if they were selling clothes online, it was way more likely to be on a Finsta account. They would have a separate Instagram called like Macy's Closet, and they'd be selling to their friends. or they'd be selling within their sorority on Facebook groups or Group Me, something like that. Some of them had used Poshmark, but it due to the like older focus and the brands on there, they tended to like not be current users of it.
And
So
what's the
in a lot of
what was the main? Why do you think Poshmark skews older? Is it you mentioned the brands? Is it the user experience? Is it the design of the app website? Like why? I wonder why that's the case.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it could be like Curtsy has a strong focus on Gen Z because we've built for that customer. There could be
Mhm.
a similar feedback loop that was in place from Poshmark from the early days
Yeah.
where they were going after this market, and it evolved over time. But um, I will say, if you look at Curtsy's app, hopefully you will find that it's very clean and well organized. It doesn't look thrift, there's nothing really thrift about it. It doesn't require you know wading through a lot of low quality listings. Like we do a very like manual process of curating and manually cropping and rotating and improving every listing so that it's a very clean, consistent shopping experience for people. um, it's it's very it's very casual seller driven. So the dynamics of Curtsy are such that you can be brand new to the app, have zero clout or followers on the platform. If you list a good brand, good item, good price, that will go to the top of everybody's feed and that will sell. We call it like an item meritocracy, but really it's similar to like TikTok, right? Instagram, you have to build up followers, you have to grow your audience. That's the dynamic of apps like Poshmark. Those are way more conducive to people who are trying to make a business out of selling. They're willing to kind of spend their time learning the platform, growing their network as a way to grow their sales and grow their business. Curtsy is way more like set it and forget it.
Hmm. All right. So as you decided to pivot, how big of a challenge was redesigning, launching the app? Was that like a 1 week? Was that like a 6 month experience? And then when did you guys kind of flip the switch and turn that on?
Yeah, no, good cue. And I was going to mention that we actually originally started as a like it was a toggle, so you could rent or you could buy sell. And we didn't necessarily foresee that, but the buy sell side, like because it's not constrained to just dresses, people wanted to sell, and still our number one best selling item to date is like activewear, Lululemon leggings, Lululemon shorts, Nike
Mm.
shorts, something that you like. It's not necessarily intuitive that people would want to sell those things. But yeah, so there was demand for activewear. There was demand for selling casual things. Nobody ever wanted to rent anything casual. Denim skirts, denim cut off shorts, denim jackets, mom jeans. That's a lot of denim examples, but
Mhm.
Ray-Ban sunglasses, right? Like you would never want to rent those. So pretty much overnight, like, and the other comparison between rental and buy sell and what we noticed when we had both of them in the app is you can't rent there's no such thing as an impulse rental. It has to be around an event, right?
Mm.
So what we saw is like people, if we do a discount, if we say here's 20% off coupon, like that will grow sales because people buy regardless of like their calendar, right? They can buy this pair of leggings knowing that they'll get some use out of them over the next 6 months, or buy a bikini in December knowing that they're going on spring break in 4 months. Like that's something that's incredibly common. So it just a lot of those constraints that were on the rental business, as soon as we switched, they just went away. I mean, it was like you took the weights off, and it just kind of, it started growing way more organically, way more naturally. um, every time we added a category, we saw it continue to grow. And within a couple months, it was clear that was the future of the company. We took out the rental side of the app altogether.
Wow. I mean, to me, it's funny because it seems like a pretty audacious goal. The pivot, you said, look, this wasn't working so much, going to try something new. But it's so funny to think about it because in so many ways, I feel like most listeners would have just been like, hey, there's Poshmark and these like 50 other apps that are kind of doing something similar, but for whatever reason, the user design or focus on a certain demographic, the way that it's presented, it found a certain niche and is be able to really resonate. Talk to us a little bit about, when did you get a good understanding or be able to look around to your coworkers and say, wow, this is actually starting to work. This might just happen. When was that a couple months in? Was that a year in?
Yeah, we were really hungry for something to click, right? We had been, I was joking, like we, I was joking like this year that I finally understood what it was like to have a startup feel like a roller coaster, because um, it never felt like a roller coaster during the rental days, because there was just never any that, like there was never any absolute peaks.
Mm-hmm.
Like the semesters that we would have that would be good, right? Like immediately the business would go down in the summer, and like that was the nature of things. So it just it wasn't a hard decision for us. Like that little traction that we had in the first couple months of buy sell was so exciting. I remember we were at a we're great friends, the whole team of Curtsy. I mean, me and my high school friends, and then the Eli is our other co-founder. We were like, I think we were in Sea Ranch, for the weekend, and I remember we had a day where we got like 25, I forget what the absolute number was, but it was some like ridiculously low number of sales. And we were just so excited that we got that. And we all like, cheers or something like that. But yeah, so it was just, us kind of responding to like the numbers that we were looking at and the excitement from people. Um, and it made sense. Like there was an opportunity in the market for an app that is, designed with the simplicity and the service of Nordstrom. I used Nordstrom as an example because if you ask our customers their favorite app to shop on, a lot of them, for most of them, they say, Nordstrom comes up. Nordstrom is a great e-commerce business with a failing brick and mortar business weighing them down. So like there really was an opportunity in the space for like somebody to bring Amazon level simplicity to resale. If you think about it, everybody that ever buys clothes at some point is going to have to get rid of them. So whether that's throwing them away, donating them, upcycling them, reselling them, this was a category that didn't exist 10 years ago. And we think even the options that are out there, eBay, Poshmark, apps like ThredUp, like they haven't yet cracked this for most people. The market is still pretty small due to the UX issues around it. It's complicated to price. It's complicated to ship. A lot of these things, Curtsy has basically reduced it to be one tap flows, incredibly simple. That's really our strength as a team, is product.
Well, tell me a little bit about that. What were some of the major, additions you added post pivot, post launch, that really moved the needle, you think, on how this app enabled people to buy and sell easier or just more comfortably over the past 12 months? Was it any particular insights onto the user experience, or any parts of the app that really stand out where, you look back and say, oh man, that little tweak we did ended up being pretty significant, or this was something we had expected to really work that didn't? Any ideas?
Yeah, I would say definitely what I mentioned earlier about like the work that we do to merchandise all the items posted, and present them in the best light. That's, how to photograph your items and display them so that they can be successful in a marketplace isn't necessarily intuitive to people that are doing this casually. So doing that legwork for them. We actually have what we call a Curtsy Shipping Kit. So we send people in the mail everything they need to ship their order without leaving their house, which is the status quo in this space is to print out your label, drive to a post office location, and wait in line and figure out what box to use. And I hope you brought tape and scissors, because they don't give you any. So it's a very, very like poor UX, poor customer experience. And it wasn't like we necessarily had a big breakthrough here. It's like No, Gen Z doesn't know what the post office is. They have absolutely no idea. Like, we literally have to do that. We like that was the way that we made shipping work back in the real days, was we sent people the bags to do it. And they're really cute. They have Curtsy branding. They have a little sleeve for the label that's adhesive. It goes on like a sticker, and the mailer self seals, and then you tap one button and USPS will come pick it up at your house.
See, that's, it's so seemingly meaningless, but I think massively significant. I mean, I'm trying to think back over the last few years how miserable the experience of buying and selling anything on so many sites is, whether it's eBay, whether it's uh, God forbid, Craigslist, dealing with 400 emails. And then, like you
Yeah.
mentioned, the whole shipping part. I just bought, probably with everyone else in the United States, I tried to buy some dumbbells earlier this year, which is like impossible to find anywhere. I
Yeah.
bought some, and it was like 2 months later, I get an email and they're like, sorry, your order was canceled. I'm sure somebody just dropped shipping them from China or something. But the
Yeah.
user experience, and I've been debating this, and one of the reasons I'd invested in y'all's company, with Peter Livingston and others, was some of the mentions, which is reducing the amount of friction involved and just headache of selling and recycling, sort of uh, uh, things that people own that they would totally securitize and sell much easier and buy if all the headaches were removed. I mean, you're seeing that with cars now a bit, and Carvana and
Yep.
others, but um, this is one of my favorite themes across all of investing right now, is this concept. Anyway, so okay,
No,
so
and
you
I
guys.
think it to your point, people say like, what's the differentiation? And I basically, in summary, say like, it's our design and it's our customer experience. But um, there's a lot of contradictions, definitely. One of them is that small things make a huge difference, and then the flip side of that would be like, you're not going to iterate your way to a big company. Um, arguably the difference between MySpace and Facebook, or Yahoo and Google, like, the devil was in the details there. MySpace and Yahoo, they had the elements in place. It was just missing the page rank on Google side, and for Facebook and MySpace, it was missing the trust element. So that's kind of how I think about Curtsy too. And we're definitely not big enough to be able to say that we follow that pattern entirely. But I do think I think about that a lot. What's the shift that will unlock or get rid of some like remaining friction, and help more people sell their clothes easily online.
Yeah, it's funny. I had moved to San Francisco in the early 2000s, worst possible timing ever, but had firsthand view of a lot of friends that had been involved in the original internet boom and bust. And it's so interesting in retrospect to see how many companies with a very similar approach, mandate, et cetera, just with a little bit different execution, ends up being the difference between billions of dollars in market cap and others totally failing and going to zero. Friends that had started social networks in the 90s that were even
Yeah.
too early, that just for various reasons. You mentioned MySpace. I assume I still have a MySpace page somewhere, and Friendster and Orkut and all these others. Anyway, okay, so you guys found a little product market fit, started selling some Lululemon pants, which is astonishing to me, by the way, that's one of the most highly transacted. And this is all female, by the way, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you have a little product market fit. Where are we now? Have you decided to go raise some more money? Where in the progression of rollout are we in the timeline?
So we had a great year this year. We grew a lot last year too, but this year, COVID, instead of slowing us down, it just kind of accelerated things,
Mm-hmm.
which I've actually heard is pretty unique to us. I've heard from a couple other companies in the space that they didn't necessarily see a similar curve
Hmm.
I think part of it was spring is always really big for cleaning out for apps like Curtsy. People are they're bloated from the consumption that led up to December and Christmas. They're they have a lot of stuff, and they want to clear out. They want to stop buying new stuff. They're looking for a deal again. All that stuff is really, and then they're looking ahead to like spring events. All that stuff is really conducive to us having a great couple first months of every year. When COVID hit, and I know this wasn't really your question, but when COVID hit, we were like, oh shit, because all of our customers' events got canceled. They all got sent home. They were looking ahead to sitting at home for several months, and we were really worried because a lot of our sales in the spring were still of dresses and stuff to wear to events, swimsuits to wear on spring break, all that stuff. What happened was the increase in supply posted to the app and like surge in demand for casual things like sweatpants and hoodies completely not only carried our business and sustained the growth rate, but accelerated it. We grew like our growth rate went from like mid 30% to like mid 50s percentage within like 2 months. So our current volume just at a high level, we're now about around like 15 to 18 million GMV monthly, annual recurring GMV. We are doing about like 80,000 transactions a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that a bunch of the podcast audio listeners can't see this in the video? There's a rack of clothes in the background. I was going to make a joke.
Yeah.
Like, are you like the top seller on Curtsy? Are you fulfilling some orders in the background?
Well, this is a good question. One of the cool things from our rental days, like one of the things we got really good at was tracking an item as it went between colleges. So we would see like during game day, a red romper or somebody who wore football games would literally go from like Alabama to Georgia to LSU like in every weekend. And we knew that young people were less interested in like the behavior was less like accumulate and then purge after 5 years. Like young people were way more into like rotating their outfit and selling as a way to fund new stuff. So it led us to this idea like Curtsy's built for rotation. Everything that is ever posted to Curtsy stays on Curtsy as it moves between people's closets. And people that have bought something can resell what they bought with one tap. And everybody that had initially loved the item gets re-notified.
Oh, smart.
And it creates this loop where the more things that have sold, the more things will be ultimately resold.
That's smart.
And that connects me to the rack back here. Whenever we have to buy something, like whenever we have a return on Curtsy, say, could be a number of things, but say somebody got something and it had a stain, but they missed the window where they could do a return to the seller. 9 times out of 10, we'll just buy that item from the person using our own one tap relist account. And then we just sell it from like a Curtsy account. That's how we do returns.
What are some of the insights that you could give as far as demographic? Has it remained that similar age group as they age? I mean, it's only been a few years, but do you see the people continuing on as they get a little older? Is it any particular parts of the country? Is it still heavy in the Southeast, or is it
still really focused on 18 to 22? There is like a good amount of customers in high school and recent grads, but still very, very concentrated in the college market. And that's something we're actually working on now, is adding more segmentation in the app to deliver a personalized experience, more personalized experience to like college, but then also high school and recent grad, because the use case and category mix changes depending on age.
And you can correct me, but I assume the answer will be to continue to focus female only, right?
Yeah, it's really men and women are in terms of like the fashion world are completely different. I personally have like I think I have probably more than the average person. I have like 15 shirts that I rotate between on a regular basis. The number of SKUs in like any of my girlfriend's closets will be like in the hundreds. So it's just a little
Right.
different.
What I'll tell you a feature that I think is brilliant, but is a little bit different. I'm curious if something you guys have ever considered or would do. And I actually posted it to Twitter and got a goose egg response back from my followers, which was, I love the concept of what you mentioned, this purge where people go through a certain time in their life or just
Yep.
can't, moving, coronavirus, nothing else to do, which by the way is probably another reason you got so many influx of users, is people just at home, looking
Yep.
for some distractions. But one being the concept of, look, I'm not just going to sell one shirt, but I want to sell all of my shirts. Like, I'm so done with XYZ.
Shirts.
I think ThreadUp, is it ThreadUp? There's one company, there's not that many that have this whole clean out your closet sort of concept. Is that something you guys have ever considered? Because by the way, it's you guys don't do men, but I would 100% do that tonight with not only all my clothes, but half of the electronics in the house too. And anyway, is that something y'all have ever brainstormed, considered, tossed that idea in the trash can?
So ThreadUp, for those who are not as familiar, they send people a bag, and then you put whatever you want to get rid of in that bag and send it off to ThreadUp, and they will a couple weeks later give you an offer on those items. The way to think about it is like an online version of Plato's Closet or Buffalo Exchange. The problem with ThreadUp is a similar complaint that you might have doing it locally, which is like, you're just not going to make that much from your stuff. In order for them to, I was listening to an interview with James, who's the founder and CEO at ThreadUp. He said, they essentially said, how do you make money? And he just said, carefully, carefully. And everybody laughed. But yeah, I mean, it's really tough. They end up having this problem where because people don't tend to put their nicer stuff in a ThreadUp bag, right? If it's even a little bit nicer, or they spend a little more money with it, they'll be more likely to try to sell it on their own or hang on to it for fear that they won't make any money if they put it in the ThreadUp bag. So ThreadUp's having to make money off of the stuff that has low liquidity on Curtsy, like fast fashion, J. Crew, those like less popular brands that don't hold their value as much, and winning on volume essentially. So a lot of I don't envy them and the complexity of that business, but it's
that makes sense, because there's the very real behavioral bias of people who once you own something, prescribing a much larger value to it than before after you own it. So people, there's probably a big spread between what they think all their junk's worth and what it's really worth.
Curtsy is really, and I think we will always be to some extent, demand constrained. Like, there will always, not only will there always be more people that want to get rid of their clothes than there are that necessarily want to buy those, but people in general have really high expectations for what their used clothes are worth. Part of that is just due to the general like lack of liquidity in the resale market, because it's like a little bit nascent and growing. But that's actually a big lever that we have for liquidity, is like, how do we adjust expectations down and help the buyer and the shopper and the seller arrive at the market price quickly.
How big is the team at team size now, and how are you guys kind of dealing with everything during the pandemic as far as working together as a company?
Yeah, so we've got 5 people full time, and we're growing a couple. We're hiring a couple more people. Excuse me, hiring a couple more people. We've got 2 engineers, full-time engineers. One of those is a co-founder. We've got myself. I do all the design, and I also do engineering for like internal tools and our website and stuff. And then William is our head of growth, and he also does like the financial part of the business, our P&L and books and stuff. And then Claire Agnes is our like I saw this tweet once. It was like, every company needs a chief community officer. That's like a great description of what she does. She leads our customer service. She does handles all of our like customer re-engagement on social media, emails, customer development, and then she like leads the logistics of our returns and our shipping kit program as well.
So let's talk about the future. 2020 has been a long decade already. It's only been, what, 8 months in. The summer's starting to wind down. People are getting back to business, back to school, or not. When you look to the horizon, not just the rest of the year, what's on your brain for Curtsy? First, we can tackle the actual app and business. What are you excited about? What are you looking to roll out? Then we can talk about fundraising, all that good stuff. What's the future hold?
Yeah. So we definitely have product market fit in the market that we operate in. Our focus now is on growing within that market, because there's still a lot of people that haven't heard of Curtsy. And then also like expanding into younger customers, high school, and then recent grads. Part of that is to just get more sophisticated when it comes to growth. Really, the lever that has been relevant over the past year is really paid acquisition. There is a big like big aspect of virality, non-incentivized in an app like ours, because there's a strong incentive for sellers that post to promote themselves, and there's also a lot of sharing that's happening when you're doing any online shopping, sending it to your sister or your mom to get their feedback, stuff like that. So we're now focused on our current focus in like next couple of months is really doubling down on that sharing. So making it really easy for the buyer to share things, and then also like get incentivized for that referral. For sellers, we're doing a program where you can sell to your friends for free for life. So you pay zero seller fee for anybody that you refer to Curtsy that buys from you, with the thinking that like we would always get cut out of that transaction anyway. So like maybe we can, put that value prop in front of somebody, get them to share with their followers, and then give them like an extra incentive to do that. Longer term, we see a lot of opportunity with video. We're launching a video selling platform within Curtsy. Right now, the process of selling does involve like some typing. So video is like a little higher fidelity, and you can kind of show the item without having to type as much. So we're pretty bullish on that, and we're launching experiments around that. And then we're just, other than that, like it's a little bit of a land grab, and a blitz to just introduce ourselves to as many customers as possible. We are starting to work with an agency on the paid side. We are working a lot on like demand aggregation and matching to try to, the more items that are posted to Curtsy, the harder it is to keep things highly relevant, and reduce the amount of impressions it takes to find something that you like. So investing in that, that's a lot of stuff, but that's kind of the stuff
I was gonna say. And on top of that, being a bootstrap company, are you guys planning on doing any more fundraising? I know it's been a bit of a rocket ship this year. What are the plans there? Are you just gonna keep cruising? You gonna raise some more money? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we hit the road in the next 6 or so months. We're definitely the Series A, seems like Series A's have kind of become a little nebulous, but certainly my understanding of it is the right time to raise an A is when you kind of know you have your ducks in a row to some extent. You know what needs to be done, and it's really just like that capital and that those hires that you need to make, those channels that you need to pour money on. And I think we really are on the verge of having that apply. So I wouldn't be surprised if we hit the trail here shortly.
Well, cool. Investors, hit David up. Tell him Meb sent you. Maybe he'll give you free shipping on the carry. Um, what's been the most memorable part of this whole journey over the past handful of years? When I asked Peter for any questions to ask you, he joked about you living and working with all of your coworkers together in the early days, the challenges of getting it bootstrapped off the ground. But to you, what's the most memorable moment? Anything come to mind? It can be good, it can be bad, it can be in between.
Oh yeah, I mean, when we lived together in Mountain View, we had um, we all it was our first year, right? We were in Y Combinator. There was the four of us, and then like our William and Claire Agnes' cousin at one point was living with us, and there was six people living in this like 3-bedroom house, two in the garage, and we like it was the South Bay, and we were there together working on our startup. So we literally had nothing to do. We would work out twice a day. We'd all like bike to 24-hour fitness in Mountain View at lunch and like do a synchronized workout where like we would all like it was an app called I Want Six Pack Abs. It would show it was these like workout videos that we would just like all do at the same time, and then at after dinner in the afternoon we would run to the shoreline and like do a bike ride I mean, it was like summer camp. I mean, it was
Mm-hmm.
literally ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But great, great conducive environment for focusing on your startup. After that year, we moved to this mansion. It was such a big house in the marina. When we signed the lease, we had the plan was like 9 people were going to work out of there. And by the time we left that house a year later, we had only 4 people because we did the pivot. Lost some interns, went back to school. We had some people quit. We had some people fired. So we there was like 6 bedrooms, 2 kitchens. It was actually the house. It was the mansion that was used in season 1 of Top Chef. So it had like this gigantic kitchen. We all worked out of there, and then the third year of our company, the year that we pivoted, there might be some correlation here, but that's the year that we finally got an office, and the boys on the team kept living together until like 2 months ago, and then we finally all have gone our separate ways, but we're all still great friends. Yeah, I mean, I think YC does say like living together is the best because you don't, Paul Graham especially, like in the YC onboarding notes, it's like co-working is not good for startups because startups are like cults and they have their own unique way of doing things, and they need that like isolation to thrive as a cult. And that definitely definitely happened with us. Like everybody on the outside looking in was like, who the hell are these people doing living like this? But yeah, I think now that we're not doing that anymore, and it's a more traditional arrangement where we have like a separate office in a house, and it doesn't seem like any efficiency or yeah. All the conversations that we used to have late at night, we just have like in a meeting now during the day, and it's totally fine.
Yeah, it certainly brings back fond memories when I lived in San Francisco. I was in North Beach, 4 guys at least minimum living in a 2-bedroom that we turned the dining room into a bedroom and then just took over the basement. There was a basement that I think was
Yep.
shared with the rest of the building. We just turned into a bedroom.
Yep.
That's funny.
Fun times.
I love San Francisco, despite all of the challenges that city goes through. It's such a world class city.
I know.
David, where do people go? They want to follow on what you guys are doing, download the app. Where's all the best places to find you guys?
Yeah, we have an app on the App Store called Curtsy. You can go check it out. Share with all the women in your life, or your daughters, whatever. There is some men's stuff too you can find on there. Anything that's ever accidentally posted that's in our sizes, that Eli, William, and I will typically scoop it up. But you can find me personally on Twitter, DEOATES, my first initial E, and then Oates, my last name.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically about it.
Awesome. David, best of luck to you in your continued expansion of this great company. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all the questions.